Good morning, everyone. We are continuing here in the words of the Mesillas Yesharim, and today we will finish off the 5th chapter in the Ramchal's beautiful teachings about the midah of zehirus, about the attribute of watchfulness and being careful, being aware of one's actions and deeds, making sure that they're in line and in tune with the Ratzon Hashem. And this chapter has been all about the deterrence, those things which are going to take us away from being a watchful and a careful person. And this will also round off the entire chapters all about zehirus as we embark on a new midah next week. And he writes, V'David Omar, King David says over the following, Ve'adabra be'edaisecha neged malachim v'la'evosh. I spoke about your edos, about your testimonies, about the Torah and the mitzvahs, while I was with malachim, while I was with kings, other kings of other countries, and I was not embarrassed, I was not shamed. Even though that most of the kings of that time, they would speak about their conquests and their battles and their wars and their treasures and their riches and their wives and their mistresses and all the different things that they were involved with. And King David was also a melech, he was also a king, he was the melech of the most chashiv, the most beautiful, wonderful nation, Klal Yisroel. And he finds himself in these very noble meetings and gatherings of kings from around the world, from around those areas of the world and the nations. And they're all speaking about their conquest and all of their money and all their things that they've accomplished in the physical world over here, how their kingdom, no one is greater than them, and no one is smarter than them, and no one is wiser than them, and no one is more powerful than them in their army. So, it would seem that David HaMelech should be embarrassed, should almost be like ashamed, that as he's standing around this great convocation of kings, powerful, mighty kings, he's talking about Mussar and Torah. He's giving a vort, he's giving an understanding about the Parsha. He says over what it means, Reshis Bar Elokim, from this week's Parsha. He says over one idea about how corrupt money is and how corrupt power can be and how a person can't become a Baal Gaiva. They shouldn't become a haughty person. Rather, they have to work to remain humble and pure and simple. David HaMelech is standing amongst kings who are there in their great flowing cloaks and their golden crowns and their scepter in their hands, surrounded by all of their ministers and who are at the bid to do their order. And King David is sitting there with a sefer in his hand, and he's like, oh, did you see the Rashi on this week's Parsha? Could it be? He doesn't talk about the great nation of Klal Yisroel. He doesn't speak about his treasures. He doesn't speak about his plans to build the Beis HaMikdash. He doesn't speak about his riches and his power and the armies that fought against the Plishtim and they won. He doesn't talk about any of that. All that he's talking about is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's talking about mitzvahs. He's talking about the profundities of Torah. How does he do that? He didn't even think or worry about this for a moment, that he's embarrassing and shaming himself in the presence of these kings while he's speaking about Mussar and Divrei Torah. They're all speaking about their conquest and their power and their might. It didn't even matter to him. His heart was not drawn into speaking about these vanities and the foolishness and the frivolity of the time and the energies that the kings were expending on all of their conquest and their wars and their battles and the like, and counting up all of their money and their riches and their gold. David HaMelech didn't care about any of that. Once that he already reached the emes, he reached the truth. He knows what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from him, which is to be an Oved Hashem, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be strong and committed in your mitzvahs, to be a zahir, to be careful, to be watchful, to make sure that you're doing what's right. But he's going to sit around and talk about kingly things. It's in his own eyes, it's ridiculous who the kings are. Anyway, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the melech, is the ultimate king. We're only his servants here in this world, and that's how David HaMelech lived his life. He was a Rayat Zayin. He was a little shepherd boy who ended up becoming the Melech, the king over Klal Yisrael. He didn't look at himself as a powerful man. He didn't look at himself as a mighty person who made everything himself. No, he looked at himself as an Eved Hashem, as a servant, a beloved servant, who was committed and dedicated to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and Hashem is the Melech, Malach HaMelachim is the King of all kings. I won't speak and brag about myself, says David HaMelech. I'll speak about the ultimate King, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ela mifarish va'omer, rather David HaMelech says, va'adabra be'edosecha neged melachim. That's why I speak about your edus. I speak about your Torah and your mitzvahs and the life of ruchni, of spirituality, in front of the kings, and I'm not embarrassed at kihuzeh, one drop, because I know that what I'm talking about is the emes, and they're talking about sheker, about falsehood. The Yeshaya, the great prophet Isaiah, said also similarly, Al kein samti panech chalomish. Therefore I made my face like flint, like a stone, like a rock stone. And even though that there were so many people that were hurling insults and saying other things at me, but I'm speaking the Devar Hashem, the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I will not be embarrassed, I will not be ashamed, I'll be strong, L'man Hashem, for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is how a Yid, how a Jew who wants to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is how we have to think. We have to think that yes, there will be many people in this world, and there will be many things in this world that stand in the face of our Yiddishkeit, that are connected, that go against the very fiber and the foundation of what it means to be a Jew and what it means to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly, with love and with simcha and with awe. Nevertheless, a person should never be embarrassed. You have the key. We have the answer to all of life. We have the greatest gift in the world as a treasure, the relationship that a Jew has with the Rebbeinu Shalom, which comes through Torah and through mitzvahs and our davening and our Yiras Shamayim and the chesed and everything that we do. That is the most treasured relationship here in the world. We have that. The rest of the Welt, the rest of this world doesn't have that. Unless, of course, they become B'nai Noach, they do what's even for the non-Jews are supposed to do, or they get so inspired by Yiddishkeit they want to convert. True, but what do you have to be embarrassed about? You're embarrassed because you don't drive the same kind of car as your neighbor. You're embarrassed because you don't have a TV in your house. You're embarrassed because you don't speak Lashon Hara. You're embarrassed because Shabbos means you stay in the house and you sit with your family, you enjoy each other's company, because you can't be out at the beach sitting by the waves. What are you embarrassed about? Zok David HaMelech, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. You have HaKadosh Baruch Hu behind you. You have HaKadosh Baruch Hu's team. You have the greatest treasure in the world, which is Torah, and with his mitzvahs. There's nothing for a person to be ashamed about 1 ounce. On the other hand, be strong and be bold and be swift and be quick to do the Ratzon Avicha Shavashamayim, the will of your Father in heaven, and be proud of who you are. When a person is proud of being the Jew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us, I'm proud of Torah, I'm proud of mitzvahs, I'm proud of the Rebbeinu Shalom, then I'm not embarrassed 1 drop, 1 ounce in this world. On the other hand, I will stand with my head up high, with great appreciation and gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has given me these great gifts in my life. May we be Zeiche Im Yetz Hashem to digest and to imbibe the beautiful teachings over here, the Ramchal, to become people of greater zehirus, of greater watchfulness, and in that way serve Hashem properly, which will be a tremendous nachas in His eyes. All the best.